Welcome everybody. It's episode 425 of the SevereMMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Colin Bascal of Irish MMA Media, Graeme McDonald, as we take a deep dive into the world of mixed martial arts on the 16th of July 2023, with lots to offer to our listening public today. Before we get into all of that, let me tell you that this episode of the podcast is brought to you by our great friends over at Manscaped. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time to unleash that beach beast within you. I'm sure we'll have sun soon. And this summer, Manscaped is here to help you level up your beach game with their new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. I want one of these. Manscaped, send them out. They're going past waist deep in the grooming game and diving in head first to your facial hair fantasies. The Beard Hedger is a game changer, allowing you to shave your beard like a true beach babe. So this summer, let the beach balls bounce and turn heads all over the place. Visit manscaped.com and use the code SevereMMA for 20% off and free shipping. It's time to tame your mane, so say goodbye to all your stubble trouble with Manscaped's Beard Hedger Pro Kit. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of add-ons. Plus, it's waterproof. You can shave in the shower to avoid all the hair in the sink. It has a titanium-coated T-blade, and it's tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single-stroke efficiency. It brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. It doesn't end there, though. They have created 4 dermatologically tested formulations for your post-trim care. First of all, the beard shampoo and conditioner. You need to remember all your hair is different. I actually have some of this now. I know if you haven't or not, but it's very good. I like this a lot. I use it a lot. It's your beard hair is different to your head hair, and you need something different on it. Then after that, they have the Manscaped beard oil. It helps relieve dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath it, while adding a little summer shimmer and shine. And then you have the beach balm, a pomade that shapes, styles, moisturizes and tames for a sculpted look to attract any fellows or dames. The Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 free gifts: a beard brush, comb, scissors, to ensure your beard is ready to impress. So to get all of that, use the promo code SevereMMA to get 20% off and free shipping, and don't cough like me while you're doing it. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the code SevereMMA. Manscaped Beard Hedger, one stroke, one guard, 20 lens. And while you're there, Graeme, while you're doing that, head on over to our friends over at Caldera Lab as well and get some beautiful skincare products, because first impressions matter. There's no two ways around that. And what do people look at first? Your beautiful face. So add a little bit of a skincare routine to that and we'll be all well and good. If you go over to Caldera Lab, use the promo code SevereMMA at calderalab.com. You can get 20% off their best products. And the best products, what are they, Graeme? They are starting with the regimen, which is an absolutely brilliant twice-a-day routine to transform your skincare. Obviously, we know it's a heavily female-driven industry, but like, why can't the lads have a bit of that? Why can't we have a bit of it? Come on, the regimen is the way to do it, though. 3 things: clean slate, base layer, the good. Clean slate, it starts your day, refreshes your face and your skin. The base layer is your daily moisturizer that hydrates and absorbs fast, gives you a matte finish, starts your day confidently. And the good is your go-to at night. Clinically proven multifunctional serum that makes skin look smoother and tighter. There's 3.4 million antioxidant units protecting your skin. I think everyone wants to know what that means, but who knows? But it must be good, like it has to be. They even have eye serum called the Icon, which I need some of that at the moment after staying up all night to watch the fights. 3 most common skin concerns around the eye. It helps with them: fine lines, dark circles, and puffiness. Look, Caldera Lab is made with top-tier ingredients. It's a great addition to your daily routine. Take less than a minute or 2 in the morning, and it's here to reduce wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. And you know what? That's that. Get the code SevereMMA, put it in at calderalab.com, and you can get 20% off. Jump into that first impression royalty with Caldera Lab. Okay, Graeme, let's jump into MMA now. And do you know what? Let's start with Shauna Bannon, because it's I was going to say it's not often we have Irish people debuting in the UFC, but do you know what? It's getting a bit more regular again, and it's absolutely great to see. But she makes her UFC debut against Beuno Silva at the upcoming UFC London, and I was thinking about it, and it's obviously a massive opportunity for Shauna and all. It's great for Paddy Hoolan's gym, with the him taking that record now that no one else can break, about being the first Irish person to fight in the UFC and to train someone in the UFC, which is absolutely massive. But I don't think we've ever had someone in the situation like Shauna's is, where it's like she's almost gotten there too quick. Usually it's the other way around. Usually it's like, oh my God, Cathal Pindred has been trying for about 10 fights. Conor McGregor has 24 fights in his career. Ashling Daly, everyone down through the years. Like Rhys a little bit, but I think Rhys was like, I could have got a little bit more, experience, or fought for the cage, or maybe one fight or something like that. Charlie Ward, obviously, I suppose, is the other example as well, but he had a good few fights into his career and stuff. But Shauna's very new in her career, so much so that only 2 years ago she won our amateur fighter of the year. It seems absolutely mad that she's gone this quickly. Only made her professional debut in 2022, and it's 2023 now, so it's 15 months as a professional. It's absolutely mad to see, Graeme, and we're not used to this sort of thing, are we? But it's brilliant. You're looking forward to Shauna's debut, where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think she's shown how much she's grown in between fights, and she's, as you said, got to the UFC really quickly, and she's also had she's had a kid, she's a single mother, she's juggling all that stuff with her training, and she really is like doing a lot really quickly, and hopefully it's not too quickly. I don't think it is. I think obviously it's going to be a step up when you're fighting kind of 1-1, 3-0, 3-0-1, 1-2, 6-4 girls. Like, she's winning decisively. She's looking good. She's improving in them fights, but it definitely is a big step up in terms of the UFC, and a competitor like Beuno Silva, who's kind of fought more experienced girls in the past and has had that contender series and the UFC experience. Even though she lost in the UFC, she's felt the kind of the big event feel before, and Shauna seems to me like the kind of girl who will embrace all of this and kind of feed into it, and will use it to her advantage and kind of rise to the occasion. But that's all speculation until we actually see her go in and do it against somebody who is a tough opponent in Beuno Silva. She's an experienced girl, as I mentioned, and she's fought some tough fights. So I'm expecting Shauna to go in and win, but it's definitely a big step up and a huge moment for her, and for Beuno Silva, it's a very important fight as well, because she's 0-1 in the UFC now, and obviously you can't keep losing in the UFC. You're going to get cut, so there's a lot on the line for her as well, and she's going to come looking to take that undefeated record away, and she'll probably be looking at Shauna's record thinking she's fought nobody like me, and if I put the pressure on her and stick to a game plan, I can cause her problems. So I'm very interested in this fight. There's going to be a lot of questions answered, and yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, 100%. People, I suppose, don't know Shauna in terms of her fighting background. There's interviews with Ian and a few interviews with Ian out there on our SevereMMA, so check them out. But as a fighter herself, like, and it's funny because she was over with her sister at the European Games there only a couple of weeks ago with her, kind of point fighting and taekwondo-ish type of background that she had in her. I know her father is involved an awful lot with that, and she spoke about Ian, about that with Ian as well. And that's the type of style she is when you look at her first. But then you see her recent fights, and there's a lot of grappling. There's a lot of her winning fights on top. She's turned into a good wrestler, which is odd to say for someone who's, 15 months as a pro, and like the improvements that have been made already. But it's with Shauna, it's a case of, if you're only starting following her journey now, it's probably a good time to start, because she's really still on that journey. Like, who at 15 months into their professional career would be the finished article? Absolutely no one. But what she has showed in, especially the last two Invicta fights, and obviously she had the Cage Legacy fight in there as well, is like clear improvements between fights. It's like, massive improvements between fights, and like you'd need to make those improvements to get to this level, and I think that's why she has been signed, because the UFC want to sign undefeated people. They want to sign people that they can see are making clear improvements, and she absolutely definitely
exciting fighters as well, people who go for the finish. You know, even though she hasn't actually got a finish in her last 3 fights, she's gone to decision. They've been dominant, and she's, you know, looked to finish on the feet and looked to finish on the ground, and that's why, like, you know, Dana White and the UFC, they're the exact kind of fighters looking for. And undefeated, as you said, is a huge boost to getting signed.
Yeah, 100%. I'm interested though, because like people look at Shauna and they probably look at her background, and like if people don't know as well, Shauna's a fight with Dakota Dacheva back in 2020, and if people don't know who Dakota Dacheva is now, she's probably the best up and coming 125 pounder on the planet. She's really, really, really good. And I went back and I watched that fight recently, and you know what? It was very close. There's definitely an argument Shauna could have won that fight. So that's up a weight class.
That was her last loss as well. You know, we always say, like, you know, losing can be the secret ingredient to success, and people can, you know, especially early in their career when they're fighting amateur, we sometimes see people kind of try to pad their amateur record during their amateur career, and it's just, you know, completely pointless in my opinion. Obviously it gives you a bit of confidence and things like that, but like the route of going and fighting these really tough girls like Shauna has at amateur, and doing these you know, IMAFs and these taking you out of your comfort zone, and, you know, all that stuff, definitely just, that's what amateur should be for. And that's, you know, she's shown how solid a base that can build you. And, you know, me and you have both been talking about how much improvement she's made in between fights, and I think she's probably made more improvements than we've seen, and she just really hasn't got a chance to show it. So, you know, I'm really, you know, I'm excited about this, and I think like, you know, she goes for the finish, and I think she might get one here.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight because Beuno Brazil, going back watching her, she's very much kind of a point fighting stylist as well. You know, she fights on the outside. Now there isn't, obviously, you know, there isn't a whole pile of tape on her, because she's had 2 fights on one the Contender Series, one in the UFC, both finished in the second round. So you know, and I watch a bit of her LFA fight as well, but she does like the fight on the outside. I'm interested to see. I love, do you know what I love when I'm interviewing fighters? I love asking them, like, how do you develop your style and all, and I love the different answers I get with that. And I'm interested to see, like, if Shauna's style has developed through necessity or through want. Because if it's through necessity and Beuno Brazil comes out and strike, we could have a really fun sort of striking matchup between 2 point fighters on the outside, which anyone who sees the background, the art in my wall, knows that I absolutely love that. So that'd be absolutely class. Or if it's Shauna Bannon kind of saying, I'm going to be a well-rounded mixed martial artist, and if you come in doing your point fighting, well, I'm going to put you on the ground, and I'm going to, you know, get a submission, or I'm going to land some big strikes on the ground with you, which she's absolutely well able to do. And you know what? I think it'd be a good sign if we probably saw a bit of both, to be honest, because that's what you want. You want to be a well-rounded mixed martial artist. You're not fighting point fighting anymore, but if you can, and you can do that, and you can win a fight that way, absolutely no problem. But I'm very interested to see how she actually fights. And as you said, Graeme, as well, like the big lights over you and all, it's very different from anything she's experienced. Like Shauna hasn't had, like a lot of the fighters these days, she hasn't had the 3 arena experience, you know. She's fought in Cage Legacy and Invicta. You know, Invicta have good crowds, but not massive. And, you know, I think the one thing she has with Cage Legacy, she brings a massive crowd herself, like a few hundred people. So, like, there is that pressure when there's all your fans, like your fans are filling up the whole place, even if it's a GA hall or whatever. There is a pressure that brings, so that will help, but it's very different fighting at UFC London, and it's also going to be a different sort of atmosphere, because, you know, she's early enough on the card, I would say, you know, first or second fight. It's hard to know. I look, the atmosphere will probably be good because it's London, and people usually get in early in cards on this side of the world, so it's massive. It's really massive for Shauna Bannon, massive for Irish MMA as well, and great to see. And Graeme, before we move on from this, maybe Rhys McKee as well. The UFC haven't officially announced it, but Rhys came out and said it. Graham Boylan has come out and said it. There's a fight out there as well that I think Alex Beuno, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he a report that he's fighting Agnalusa. Now, once we get that confirmed, now we'll talk about that. But Rhys back in the UFC, Graeme, with Shauna debuting this week. What a week for Irish MMA. Absolutely fantastic to see Rhys back. And is there anyone that deserves it as much as Rhys? It's hard to say. Brilliant for him, isn't it?
Yeah, we've talked about it even since he was straight away when he was cut from the UFC, that he was hard done by, and every time he fights, you see the comments we make on social media and the podcast. We talk about how in our eyes it's clear that he should be in the UFC, and he's been extremely unfortunate. But Rhys is keeps to himself, keeps the head down, doesn't complain, just gets the work done and makes it undeniable. And the UFC said, okay, we get you in here, even though they haven't signed people like Paul Hughes, so yeah, absolutely, testament to Rhys McKee's mentality, and not letting kind of injustice or feeling hard done by get to you. Just keep the head down, keep getting better, keep winning, keep being in absolutely exciting, brilliant fights, looking for the finish. And Chimaev, that was a huge ask on short notice against a guy who was the biggest hype machine, and rightly so at the time. And this is I nearly write that off. This is nearly a second birth in the UFC for Rhys McKee. Sometimes we see guys get re-signed just because they need a fight, or they need a fighter, but Rhys McKee has 100% earned this UFC contract.
100%, without a shadow of a doubt. What do the UFC want these days? They want finishers. Rhys McKee, 13 wins, 13 finishes. That says it all about him. And you're right as well about the first part you said there about, not getting into maybe a negative mindset or whatever. After that Justin Burlinson fight, I was a little bit worried, because I think it was Andrew he spoke to afterwards, and he kind of said, now or never the UFC. And I was thinking, you're going to need another fight here. Unfortunately, it's I hope the UFC call him up the next morning, but I knew he'd need another fight, and I turned out to be right. And I think I said it on the podcast, but I was like, geez, this is a real bad sign. If he's got into a next fight, it's going to be someone good, as it was with Jimmy Wallet. If you're going into that in a negative mindset and you end up losing, Jesus, you're back to fucking square one. But he didn't. You could see quickly he turned that mindset around, and he made that Jimmy Wallet a massive fight in his head, which everyone knew was a massive fight in practice. But sometimes lads don't do it in their heads, and next thing it's out the window and you fucking lost, But he clearly did, and I spoke to him just the week after that fight as well. And you could see the respect he had for Jimmy Wallet, and the realization that this is what you had to do to get back to the big show. And then, it's taken a few months. It's 3 months now since that fight, but he's back, and he absolutely deserves it. And I think the difference now between Rhys signing in, I briefly mentioned it earlier on, he had that 3-5 win streak in Cage Warriors where he beat Hakan Foss. I think that was at the Cork card, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was, yeah. And I think there was going to be a Belfast card, that this was at the start of the pandemic, so it's hard to remember all this, but there was going to be a Dublin or a Belfast card, I'm pretty sure. He was going to be fined for the title, and then it was all, thrown in to disrepair. And then he fought Chimaev, right? 7 months into 2020. How much training had he been doing? How much preparation? It's in the middle of the pandemic, you're fighting fucking Chimaev, and then Morono a couple of months later, and then you're out of the UFC in a relatively close fight against Morono. It felt like it was a fight too quickly. It was the worst possible matchup you could get, and in a veteran, not one bit of an easy gimme at all. But he went out, and he finished guys after that. Fought a veteran in Mantakivi, fought Burlinson, one of the other best up-and-comers, and fought the veteran of all veterans in Jimmy Wallet, who was the interim champion at the time, and finished every single fucking one of them. And Rhys, his wrestling has improved, his ability to land those strikes have improved. There's no one in the UFC, there's no one in what would we say, Irish MMA or local MMA that we've seen in years, I think, in my opinion anyway, that is when Rhys gets comfortable in there, there's no one as comfortable as him. He just loves it. And I asked him about it, and he was like, that's just the way I am, I think he's just a calm guy naturally, and to be as calm as he is in there, it's massive. And I think if he can get a fight in the UFC where he is like that, I think he'll have a ton of fights in the UFC where he is like that, you know, because he has preparation now. What is he, 2 months out from this fight? It's, you know, I'm sure he would have liked a little bit more preparation, but it's enough. Get in there against Ngannou, get the win, and then go on and keep it going. But
wasn't it the case that he hadn't actually ever been to a UFC and he wanted to like save and like you know, we talk about the Jitters, the Big Show, and not having been there as a corner man or even like, you know, as a fan or anything like that is unusual for these fighters, you know, and maybe that made it even more, you know, coming in against Chimaev and the whole like ordeal around media and, you know, trying to make weight on short notice. It was a lot to ask, and this time, you know, as you said, since he's got cut from the UFC, he's improved. You know, he's definitely shown that fight to fight, and he's got the finishes. And you know, I think he'll be a lot more comfortable in the UFC this time, having experienced it before and having, you know, learned those lessons. And you know, I think this is, I don't know much about his opponent, but I think this is a much nicer matchup than the initial one he got against Chimaev and even the Morono one. So yeah, I think this is a much better chance for Rhys to show the real Rhys McKee, and you know, I'm excited. I'm very excited. Yeah,
I'm really, really excited. Can't wait for that. Like Agnew, so we'll obviously, you know, we'll go and we'll break down that fight the closer it gets. But you know, he's what 3-3 in his last 6. Kind of, he's lost to Jack Delaminate and Munir Lazzez, 2 very good fighters. Like, but he's beaten the likes of John Howard and others as well. So you know, it's definitely going to be an interesting fight. He's lots of finishes as well, and he's 5 knockouts on his ledger. So it should be a fun fight. But it's brilliant to see Rhys back, and like hopefully Paul Hughes is next. And
yeah, I was going to say about Paul Hughes. You know, we got a good few Irish on the rise now, signed to the UFC. Maybe a Dublin show, and you can sign Paul Hughes up as well, and maybe a couple others. It'd be, you know, obviously the pandemic, they were planning on coming to the 3 Arena again in Dublin, but the pandemic kind of, you know, scuppered that. So we haven't heard much about it since. Obviously Ian was over at the UFC and asked Dana about it in the scrum, and Dana said that, you know, he kind of said, oh yeah, we're looking at it, but he kind of gave the generic answer that he always gives. So, you know, these guys, you know, these Irish guys, Shauna, Rhys, Ian, keep winning, and you know, hopefully they can drag the show back. And you know, I gotta say, I feel a little bit sorry for Paul Hughes. You know, what can you do? You can't control it, but it must be kind of hard to take. You know, I think everybody expected him to get signed after his last fight, and that performance against Vucenic, just such a high level guy and such a war. And you know, it's unfortunate, but like I said with Rhys, you know, just keep the head down, and if you have to go win another fight, even though you don't want it, let's go and win it and make it undeniable. You know, go out there and keep knocking on that UFC matchmaker door.
100%. Like, the thing about it is, and I've been told this from multiple people now, like the UFC are looking for undefeated records or finishers, and like Paul Hughes is 1 loss. And he hasn't been finishing lads recently because there is this fucking unbelievable trifecta of 145ers.
Very disputed loss as well.
Yeah, very disputed loss, massively. But like, Vucenic is well good enough to fight in the UFC. Anyone who's seen Jordan Vucenic fight knows he is UFC caliber. Like, the 2 of them should be in the UFC. Morgan Sharia, like a really good fighter, absolutely could fight in the UFC, especially the Paris card coming up. No problem at all. Like, and like, it's these lads he's been in there against, you know. Paul Hughes, I tweeted it again last night. Like, you watch featherweight fights every week, and you think to yourself, these lads are in the UFC, but Paul Hughes isn't. Like, I genuinely think Paul Hughes is the way he's improved over the last while. Like, Paul Hughes is championship prospect caliber. That's what I would say. Now, am I say he's going to go on and win the 145-pound belt? Maybe, who knows? But like, I think he would become a top 15er in that division. Like, I was talking to someone from Bellator, and they were, you know, saying like, oh, what about Paul Hughes? I was like, if you sign Paul Hughes today, Paul Hughes would be a top 5 Bellator 145er today. Like, I think he, like, remember there were talks of him fighting Mads Burnell in Cage Warriors. Like, him versus Mads Burnell would be a great fighter. You'd be in that and you're fighting for a title, you know, in Bellator. Like, that's the level that Paul Hughes is actually at, and it's absolutely crazy, like, that he's not in the UFC with the level of, like, watching that Costa versus Lingo fight there last night. Paul Hughes would take out the two of them handily. Like, he's just a different level of fighter to either of the two of them, and it's crazy that he's not there. But look, we're turning into the old triangle now, so we better move on and swap here. But it's a great time for Irish MMA, absolutely fantastic time for Irish MMA, and long may it continue here. Before we get into the fights from last night, Graeme, and even maybe look ahead to next week a little bit more, a couple of topics. What about this Ronda Rousey comeback? Are you interested? Like, there's obviously.
I literally just assumed that it was shite talk and didn't pay much attention to it. I'm like 70% sure it's shite talk, and like I thought I would never be that low on it, to be honest. Like, she's leaving WWE. She's doing like a final storyline kind of thing now, like, and there's really been no reason given. Like, I just assumed, she did this once before. She went and she had a baby. She came back. I assume maybe she's going to have a second baby or moving house or something like that. But I don't know. The rumors seem to be getting wild out there and things. Now, okay, we must say it is just rumors. We've no fucking background information here. And we usually don't do this sort of thing. But I wanted to bring it up just for this point because, like, I think Ronda Rousey is underrated and underappreciated and underremembered. I was literally just thinking that as you were talking there. Yeah. Like, at the time, she was like, everybody was like, oh, this is amazing. And then since she lost, everybody, like, the general consensus seems to be that, she got destroyed, she's terrible, bad person, all this stuff. Just people piling on and just ignoring all the amazing things she did for, women's MMA and, the amazing finishes and how good she, like, everybody knew exactly what she was going to do and couldn't stop it. And maybe the game's moved on now. Like, in fact, it definitely has, and all that stuff. But, the people who paved the way, the trailblazers, need to be appreciated. And, the huge excitement that was around those fights and the extra eyeballs and the media appearances that she was able to get, that, even the top, a lot of the top UFC stars, male stars, weren't able to get either. That was important as well, outside of how good she was at fighting and how feared she was and how much of a great finisher she was and how tenacious she was. And, obviously you can laugh at her, like, the boxing, like her coach Edmund obviously kind of didn't help at all along the way and things like that. And but you got to strip all of that away and just look at what she did for the sport and how she did it, and especially for the women's side of the sport, just phenomenal.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I've said that multiple times down through years. And look, she got on the wrong side of the media at one stage, I think, and that was a big part of it, because that can happen. People start talking negatively about you and they start dragging you down, and then the fans kind of listen to that, and then they start doing it too, and then it just becomes a thing. And I've always hated that in all different sports. We've talked about it multiple times, Graeme. There's like these players, whether it's a Man United player, Liverpool player, whatever, and they start off and they have a couple of bad years, but then they turn into like a really good player, but everyone still thinks they're bad because they were bad before. Like, it's the opposite now is happening with Ronda Rousey. And as you said, maybe the game has moved beyond her and everything, and as you said, it has, but that doesn't mean she wasn't great. And also, it doesn't mean like that if she was to come back, or if she was coming back, that, like, it's not a massive thing. Like, she is one of the biggest stars in the history of our sport. She drew so many numbers, but it's not just about drawing numbers either. She wasn't a legit killer. Like, the way she finished people so quickly and everything like that. If there was a prospect of that coming back, like the people she went in there and she lost to Holly Holm, like, we'll talk about Holly Holm in a second, but and Amanda Nunes is gone now as well, so like maybe Amanda Nunes will be quickly back if Ronda was coming back. But I'd be excited to see what she looks like again.
I don't know, like, I think it's a bad idea for her. I wouldn't, if I was close to Ronda, I wouldn't recommend it.
I agree with that, yeah, 100%.
Like, the game, like, she's obviously been doing well. I haven't really been watching, but I hear she's been doing well in WWE, and training for that stuff is very different than training for MMA, and, improving with the game, and everybody around her improving. And the game had kind of already caught up to her at the time she retired. And obviously, for her legacy and all that, and just, I just don't want to see her back. I think, like, if she comes back, it's going to be against a killer. The UFC aren't going to pay her a lot of money to build her up slowly again. I don't think they're going to put her in there and try and make a lot of money on a once-off pay-per-view, more than likely. And for Ronda's sake, I just hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it is interesting because you'd wonder as well, like, what's the crack with her WWE contract? Is she trying to play them off? But then they're owned by the
same company trying to play them. Maybe they're disconnected still because it's a new merger and she can.
Brock Lesnar.
I actually was watching The Dark Side of the Ring and who was it? What was your man's name? Oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Stone Cold's old training partner. Brian Pillman, negotiating, getting Eric Bischoff to release him from his contract for like a.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Keep the kayfabe up and all, and then actually
and then he just went.
See you later, buddy.
Apparently, his son is wrestling these days, and apparently he's a bit of a Brian Pillman as well. Even his name is Brian Pillman as well. But yeah, it's he was that was a mad story. I must watch that. I haven't seen the new Dark Side of the Rings, but I must definitely watch that. But yeah, look. I just think it's a story that probably should be bigger than it actually is, but at the same time is an actual story, probably not. So I don't know why you're talking about. Anyway, one story that is a massive story though, and I feel like, and I tweeted this out, but it's. So Francis Ngannou, we talked about it last week and we talked about it in the Q&A and everything. He's now going to be in a bout against Tyson Fury. Thankfully, it's going to be boxing rules and all of that. There's no title on the line and all, which is like, well, is it? Like, I saw Luke Thomas tweeting is like, everything they're saying here kind of makes it sound like it's an exhibition. I'm like, oh God, I hope that's not the case. But it seems like
the way they kind of spelled it out, like as if people don't understand what boxing is in the press release, being like, they're going to be allowed to punch each other and all, like, you know what I mean? Odd, yeah. So that was kind of odd. It was. But the thing I want to talk about today is, I suppose, the reaction to it and the reporting of it. Now, no problem if you're talking about the fight and you're talking about, I'm delighted Francis got a big payday and, I'm looking forward to this bout and fair play to Francis getting out from the UFC, and no problem with any of that. The one thing I thought was very weird, right, was nobody, and I think John Nash did mention it, but then he was like, not actually calling him out about it. And I think after I said it, then there was a couple more people that did it. But like, this fight is happening in Saudi Arabia, and every single, and Graeme, I know you're a big sports fan like myself, every single time something like this happens in a sport and it's new to that sport, there's like outrage. Like, look at what happened with golf. Look at Man City. Look at Newcastle United, where like a state-owned, venture is happening and people are getting paid from it. I know people. A few people reply to me and goes, "Well, this is just one scumbag versus another scumbag in MMA," and like, I can't disagree with that at all. No problem. And I'm not being all high and mighty and saying, no, they shouldn't take the money or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, the reaction to it was a bit odd. Like, you have our biggest drawing star, let's say, in the world of mixed martial arts, the guy who's been, fighting for what's right for the last 3 years, and now he goes and he takes Saudi money. And he got no criticism for it. No one called him out, and nothing was said with all the coverage of sport. In fairness, at that point, I think he was fighting for like UFC or MMA fighters, the right thing for them rather than
what do you get for them?
The global thing. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think the fact that it's come to like WWE, golf, soccer, it's coming everywhere. People are just getting numb to it. Like the soft power exercise is winning. Even some of the outrage after the LIV tour and the PGA tour in golf, it seemed a bit kind of half-hearted by the end. Just kind of like, do we really have to keep talking about this? It just becomes repetitive, and that's exactly what these kind of countries want. They want people just to kind of get used to them being around and stuff, and that seems to be happening. And I think what's happened with Francis, in my opinion, is people took a side very early on what they thought 100%. Francis had done, and they just stuck to that side no matter what. They were always going to stick to that no matter what happened. They were going to be like, he dropped the bag or he didn't drop the bag, he won or he didn't win. No matter what happened, they were going to stick to their side, and they stuck to their side.
100%. You're 100% right. And myself and Spencer did a podcast over in Sherdog, like early days in this, and we said that exact same thing. Like, this is so odd, like, because there's three sides to this, like, and there's it's, you know, as we always know, the reality lies somewhere in the middle. It's like, you know, Francis had won the game with the UFC. He got offered a lot of money, like just as much money as he's probably getting now to be able to do it in the UFC and have all those fights. That was a great opportunity.
I think it was, apparently it was similar, or I don't know, we don't know the exact figure, but people are saying it was similar money. But if Francis was to lose that fight to John Jones, then the money would go down. So it was a bigger risk.
That's fair. But like the point I'm making here, I'm not saying that's like my opinion or anything, but like he had made himself a great opportunity, got himself a great offer. Now he's gone out and, you know, it's seemingly got himself a great offer, and now he's seemingly got himself another great offer with the freedom he wanted and all. So I actually, it's funny because there's these two sides like fighting against each other. I actually think Francis won the bag on both sides of it, you know. So like that I think that argument is kind of over, and I don't think it was like. The argument, I think, always was long term. I always thought Francis would get big opportunities short term, and I still think long term is an unanswered question, to be honest. But maybe he won't need any long term if he's getting 10 million for this bout or whoever it might be. But that's almost a separate point.
And in Francis's head, though, I could land a big shot on Tyson here and put him down, and then look where I'm at.
Let's not get into that shit now.
In his mind, I'm talking. I'm not talking realistically, but he's now. You know, will you go in there against John Jones and probably lose and take a pay cut? You could win that, okay, great, but then you're still on the same money. It's good money, it's great money compared to, you know, relative to other people. But the opportunities that potentially, you know, all going well, you know, could happen in Francis's mind are huge now if he goes in and wins. And even if he doesn't win, he's already, you know, made bag, as people seem to really be involving the bag metaphor.
And that's grand. I think like that argument is like really probably the stupidest argument that people have had in MMA over the last while. But that, as I said, that argument is not the one I want to bring up today. It's like, but I think you brought it up in the fact that like the people who've taken Francis's side, which is really weird. Aren't we supposed to be unbiased fucking media members here? You know, long be the day that'll fucking happen. But like those people just ignoring the fact it's coming from Saudi. And I even thought, you know, Luke Thomas was kind of one of those people. And some people are bringing up tweets about him talking about WWE taking the Saudi money, but nothing about Francis. Like, is that not ultimate hypocrisy? And maybe Luke did come out and say something about it afterwards. It's not just Luke. There's multiple people doing it, and like, I just think it's ridiculous. Well,
I think the lack of coming out against it is different than being for it. So, you know, maybe you know.
Oh, I never know, but I'm not saying they're for it.
You know, but people are kind of saying, people are calling you a hypocrite, but maybe he does have those feelings, but other people maybe above him, bosses or things, maybe, you know, like we don't know what's going on in the background. Maybe you're saying, just, you know, keep your mouth shut about this.
Yeah, well, that happens. I don't know if that's the case with any specific names, but it probably is. It probably is the case somewhere. But like, I don't know.
I'm not saying it's the case with Luke. I'm just saying that, like, you know, some things could be going on in the background.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
they're getting paid by. Like I was funny actually. I was watching. I think it was second captain today, or off the ball, one of them, and there was this lad talking about this, and he was like, "Oh well, you know, I used to have a job working for like a Saudi newspaper or something." I'm like, "Oh, did you? Okay, well, you know very well." So, but yeah, and you know the point you made earlier, right, about people being sick about talking about this, and you know, and look at Rory McIlroy in that press conference he did. That was exactly where he was. But for MMA, now people probably say, like, look at the UFC's ownership over the last while. They've had Middle East backing, and you know, for years and years and years, and absolutely, and like look at all, and we've talked about it all, but like Kadyrov and all this madness, all, you know, being involved in MMA, and as I said earlier on, there are scumbags everywhere. But just because an extra scumbag enters mixed martial arts doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. Plus, we haven't had the fatigue that other sports have had with this massive investment taking some of our biggest stars. Like you look at soccer at the moment, Cristiano Ronaldo's gone out to Saudi. You know, Liverpool's two midfielders are being bought right now, apparently out in Saudi. N'Golo Kante carrying bins of meat, all of that. It's happening right in front of our face, and there's talk about it all the time. Yet we have one of our biggest stars taken out there to have a big boxing match, and there's absolutely nothing about it. Like, this is and they're saying it's the start of like the month of festivities and all. So it's the state-run thing. This is the state that murdered Jamal Khashoggi a couple of years ago. These are the people we're talking about here, yet no criticism. And like, what are we if we don't criticize that, if we don't bring that up? Like, can you be happy if Francis is getting all the money and getting paid and all that? Absolutely no problem with that at all. Can you be like Rory McIlroy and be like, oh God, I can't, well, look, I guess we have to take this money because these people refuse to stop? Absolutely. You can absolutely have that opinion, but don't be foolish either, and don't be like, oh well, look, we'll just let it, we'll just let it wash over and not even mention it, because I think that's wrong too. And as you said, Graeme,
it's just the attitude of that's the way it is now, and there's nothing we can do about it, and people have just been worn down. That's what I think it is. Yeah. Well,
yeah, I think they have in other sports, but in MMA, have we? I don't think we have.
Is there many people who are just MMA fans and aren't kind of following other sports? But maybe a few, but like I think the majority of people have,
a lot of people covering MMA
in some way, or at least in the MMA media, they've heard about the golf, they've heard about the WWE, they've heard about the boxing. It's been in there, even if they're not following those sports, it's been in their consciousness for a good few years at this stage.
Yeah, but like if you think about it, right, when we did the soccer podcast a few weeks ago, what was your main gripe? Like, your main gripe is Man City and all the cheating they've been able to do, because they're an allegedly, let's put it that way, state-backed endeavour.
I know what you mean. My kind of point was more that everybody agrees to rules, all the teams agree to rules for the league, and they're just flagrantly breaking the rules. So that's kind of a little bit different than this, but yeah, it's definitely been an ongoing discussion for a long time in soccer. Well, a good few years at this stage in soccer.
Indeed. All right, we'll move on from it. But I'm glad we mentioned that, because I feel like it's just been completely ignored. But anyway.
It's good to see my old pal Francis, though. Not getting absolutely screwed over, which there was a small chance could have happened when he took this big chance and walked away from the UFC. So, at least that didn't happen, and fair play to him. He seems happy, and as we said, there's definitely it's not the cleanest kind of thing, but for Francis, I think I'm glad he didn't get left in the lurch anyway.
Yeah, indeed. I think this is very funny, like, because Jordan Henderson at the moment, as you know, Graeme, he's getting massive criticism because he has been, at the forefront of, fighting for people's rights and, doing, being socially fucking very good, and he deserves all the praise in the world for doing that. But now he's like, oh well, I got offered money from Saudi, I'm going to go out there, type of thing, and he's getting
$700 a week. Okay.
But look, he's getting massive criticism, isn't he? Like, I listened to Second Captain talking about him, just massive criticism, and like,
to be honest, I think like when these footballers or these England vice captains or captains are doing ads and stuff like this, I always wonder like how much do they really. Like, were they asked to do this and they kind of didn't want to say no, and now they're fucking in there doing it? Like, or
I think really he's gone over and above the,
But I think like once you've kind of done it, then you're kind of in that category. And if you do go against it like this, you're gonna everybody's gonna kind of criticize you kind of rightfully, and there's not much you can really say except the kind of old line of, oh, we go in there and change opinions from the inside, and bullshit, the old kind of worn out kind of cliche.
Do you reckon Francis will even get that question? Like, he is a guy who is like, I want to change things, I want to make the world different in terms of mixed martial arts around the world, but in terms of in America with the way people are getting paid and everything as well, like, he's been fighting for what's right, and next thing he takes the Saudi money. Like, I don't even think he'd be asked the question, and it should be the first question he should be asked. In my opinion, if it was any other sport, it'd be the first question he'd be asked, but I don't know. I don't think he'll even get asked it. Anyway, we'll move on. UFC London, we mentioned it earlier on with Shauna Bannon. It's a poor enough card, to be honest. Look, the title or the main event is a very important fight, I suppose. Tom Aspinall coming back from injury against Marcin Tybura. co-main event is Molly McCann versus Julia Stoliarenko, and maybe that's more to do with Molly's star quality than her actual quality, but yeah, not great. Then we've Nathaniel Wood, Andrew Field. That's a good fight. Paul Craig going down to middleweight. I always love to see Joy Herbert. I think the standout fighting for me on this, apart from the main event, is Leron Murphy against Josh Kulabau. I think that's a really, really, really good fight. But Joel Alvarez versus Marcia Casey is a good fight as well. And you know, as I said, there are some good fights on it, and a good few good fights on it. But it's missing that like one or two absolutely top fights that you'd expect from a London card that we've seen over the last while, because it's such a good market for them. And I think, you know, the prices of the tickets are really expensive. I know a lot of people were kind of sending on messages and stuff about that, saying, "Oh, will you talk about this, lads? It's absolutely ridiculous." And you know, seemingly it is. And I'm not sure if this one is sold out like all the rest of them. But you know, it's. I said earlier on, it's a bad card. I wouldn't say maybe a bad card. It's an okay card, but it could be a lot better, and it's missing stuff from the top. Well, what do you think of it? Is this the type of one you'd fly over for, Graeme, or is it?
You know, the fact that Shauna has been added to it, like, definitely adds a lot of excitement for me, and kind of nearly saves the card, or boosts it a lot anyway, in my mind, and my level of interest in the card. Like, but there's a lot of fights there that don't really have that much jeopardy. And you know, you mentioned the Mark Chikadze, Joel Alvarez. That should be a banger of a fight. Like, both really talented guys. Obviously, we've talked in depth about Mark in the past, and you know, all the tools he has, and you know. As Daniel Cormier mentioned, he could wrestle too. Yeah, hopefully he can put it all together. Like, Davy Grant is always exciting against a 14-0 Daniel Marcos, but yeah, the Joy Herbert fight is all like, there's a few decent fights that could be exciting. Like, Paul Craig's always exciting and stuff like that. Molly McCann's been in a lot of exciting fights. Natalia Wood, Andre Feely, and the main event is obviously very interesting. But a lot of Tom coming back and things like that. But yeah, for the kind of the cards we've been used to over these parts recently, or in the last few years, it's a bit underwhelming.
Indeed, yeah, and we'll have a full preview.
At that ticket price, as you mentioned as well, it's you know, you don't want to be a hardcore fan.
Indeed, we'll have a full preview for that anyway, and you know, we'll the lads will be talking in depth about that card on Wednesday. So check out that. The night before that, there's a really, really, really good Cage Warriors card. I'm telling you, I'd only rather go to this Cage Warriors card, to be honest. There's some absolutely brilliant fights on this, and some of the biggest names in Cage Warriors. Main event, Ireland's own James Webb is fighting for the middleweight title he once held against Mick Stanton, who he has a victory over. That should be a very interesting fight. The first time James Webb was able to get on top of him an awful lot and win the fight that way. But Stanton, we all saw him last time against Will Curry, kept getting that kind of Kimura sweep and standing up over and over and over. So his ability to get up off the ground has really improved. So that's an interesting fight. Morgan Charrier is on this card. So we talked about Paul Hughes earlier on. All of the de facto number one contenders, number two contender, number three contender are on this card. Morgan Charrier is fighting Diego Silva. Jordan Vucinic is back. He's fighting Bryce Pre-Show. And Harry Hardwick as well is on this card too. And plus Luke Riley as well, who's 6-0 in the featherweight division, and he's climbing the ranks. He's also on this. So massive night for the featherweight division in Cage Warriors, and a fantastic card. Daniel Skibinski against Matters Flaminas. Now with Rhys McKee gone to the UFC with Oban Elliott as well in the Contender Series, it's wide open at 170. If Jesse Urholin can go in and beat Emil Brown that's just a wonderful fight for me. I love those two lads. They're two of my favourite guys in the way through. You could see that as like two semi-finals there, maybe at 170. For James Sheehan as well, I know who lost obviously his last fight to Oban Elliott. He's now back in the mix at 170 again. If he goes in, gets one more win, I think he could be really close to a title fight as well. So it's massive change in times of Cage Warriors again, as it always seems to be. But this card is brilliant. Like Lanier Kavanagh's on it as well, 5-0. His opponent Shauna Silva actually fell out, but they're looking for another opponent for him, I believe. So hopefully that'll be happening. Will Curry's also on the card. Cagers absolutely fucking stacked this card from top to bottom. And if you're going over for UFC London, you haven't got a ticket yet, I would definitely suggest to buy a ticket for that card, because you're going to be seeing some future stars on that without a shadow of a doubt. Anything for you stick out, Graeme? It's it's an unbelievable card. All the names I mentioned there, myself and Brad did a preview already, and it's like we were barely able to get into like 33 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, as you said, like the really high level guys in the 45 division, like Vucenic and Charrier. I'm always excited to see, great technicians and exciting fighters, and maybe Charrier goes to a lot of decisions, but I love watching him. He's always in very competitive, exciting fights. Loner Kavanagh, Tom Creasy, Harry Hardwick. It's an absolutely stacked card, as you mentioned. Obviously the main event, and I think I'm definitely looking forward to this. There's a lot of fights on the card. Like it's going to be a long night, but there's hopefully the pacing will be good, and there's a lot of exciting fights that could go either way. On like good matchmaking as usual. We always kind of say it about Ian Dean, or like a broken record on that, but it must be said, because sometimes when the matchmaking is a bit out there, we call it out. So when it's good to mention it too.
100%. And a massive few weeks as well for Team KF. As I said, James Webb fighting in the main event, but also Leon Hill has a massive fight over in Rome the week after. We'll talk about that next week, but he's fighting the guy who knocked out Aaron Cullen in his last fight, so that's a massive fight for him as well. So huge few weeks coming up for Team KF. Takamandu has a new fight announced as well, so great times for Team KF. Right, we've looked ahead, so let's look back on last night, Graeme, and the weekend in general. Just quickly, let me mention one championship had a card. Gary Tonin got a really lovely knee bar against Shamil Gasanov.
Lovely or horrible and
horrible,
nasty?
Yeah,
both
at the same time, indeed. I like coming in. Gasanov was a massive favourite coming into this one, and I think in the first round, a lot of people were like, "Well, Gary Tonin's trying to take him down. He's trying to jiu-jitsu him, and he's getting fucking kneed in the head on the ground." I'm like, "Oh, that's not great." But then Tonin kind of set it up slowly, and you could see, and he said it afterwards. It was like, "Right, are you going to tap out here? Or are you going to force me to fuck your shit up?" And he was like, "Well, you're going to have to fuck my shit up here." And like Gary Tonin was like, "Okay," and then he just like tore his knee to shreds, and then Gasanov tapped. So I'm like, I probably should have tapped a little bit earlier there, but you can't. It's one of those ones, there's no line there. It's either shit torn to shreds or you're fine. And unfortunately for Gasanov, his shit got torn to shreds, but a great win for Gary Tonin there. Amir Ali Akbar got a very good win against Dustin Johnson, and then himself and Maliakin were kind of facing off afterwards. I think that'll be the next heavyweight fight there. Ali Akbar, a very, very good fighter and has improved a lot over the last while. Yuya Wakamatsu got back to winning ways after losing 2 against Shioe. Very good win there, TKO finish. And if you don't know, Balma as well got a win over Walter Goncalves. He was a big underdog. I gave him as one of my bets of the week. But if you haven't heard, Graeme, of Akbar Abdullayev, you need to know this guy. You need to look him up. He is unbelievable. He's now 10-0. He beat a 10-0 guy last night in Aaron Canarte. This guy is a fucking beast. I think I said it last night, but Norbert Navinny Jr. is my number 1 prospect in the world. I think this guy might be my number 2. He is a killer with serious power, good wrestling. He has it all. He's an absolute and utter beast. All 10 wins, 10 finishes. Oh, he's really good. So keep an eye on that lad. But good card again for one championship. KSW in before we get to the UFC. Filter Freeze does what Filter Freeze does. He had a bit of trouble here. Bayer hit him a good few times, and I'm like, ooh, you could have put him out. But Filter Freeze gets the takedown at the right time, all the time. Takes him down, pounds him out in the first, gets hit again in the second, takes him down again. And with 3 seconds left to go in round 2, he gets the no hooks RNC and finishes him off for his 10th title defense in a row. An absolute legend of KSW now, Philip the Freezes, and what a win for him. Sebastian Pivish got the win. The co-main event, Damian Janakovsky and Dario Stocic got the win, as well as Bartosz Lesko and Damian Stasiak. But Henry Felipe, Graeme, massive when he came in here as an underdog. I was previewing it last week. I was like, oh, it's a tough one for Henry Felipe, but he's turned the corner in his career. Henry, hasn't he? And a very good performance. Talk us through it, Graeme.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tough first round. He's fighting a good guy, a ranked guy, a guy that KSW seemed to have hopes for. And, as you said, Henry was a sizable underdog. And we talked about it before, how, he's so dangerous, and he kind of sometimes fights to the level of his opponent. But, he kind of figured out his opponent, what Christian was his combinations that he was looking to throw. And once he did, I don't know what one judge was thinking in the second round, but from the end of the first round onwards, in my opinion, he was picking them apart. Henry was picking them apart, and landing head kicks, mixing it up, leg kicks, working the body, moving around, being elusive, evasive, great head movement. Just looked phenomenal in the second and third round, and could have put his opponent away a couple of times. Had him on wobbly legs. Christian was very, very tough, stayed in there, but yeah, from the start of the second round onwards, I thought Henry completely dominated, and he ended up winning the split decision. But that doesn't really tell the story of the fight and how dominant Henry was from the second round, and especially in the third round.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And we talked about Henry last week in his Instagram. He always had the talent, and we thought he was kind of retired and he might fight again there at one stage, but to come back and go on, what is he, two out of his 3 fights now in KSW, get that opportunity and absolutely take it. It's fantastic for Henry Felipe, and long may it continue. And it's great, it's great to see Irish fighters all over the world in different promotions, and KSW is one I always love tuning into, so to be able to tune in to watch Henry Felipe fight.
In fairness to Henry, he's always fought really tough guys from the very start of his career. He was booked to fight Dricus du Plessis 3 times. That fight was cancelled in EFC. He'd take on all comers, and straight away from the start of his career, he wasn't padding his record, and people may look at a 14-10-1 record and think he's kind of like a bit of a journeyman fighter, but he's so much more than that. And when he's on, as we saw in the second and third round, he's really difficult to beat. He's really difficult to hit. He can use so many different tools. His understanding of range, he's got good power. He's composed. He's able to figure opponents out. Really, when it all clicks for Henry, he really is really technical and flowy and great to watch. He doesn't he always fight guys with good record, but he also fights guys who kind of the style matchup isn't great, or is the kind of the blueprint to beat him, and he doesn't mind that. He'll take on all comers, as you kind of mentioned there earlier, and that's exactly what KSW want. And he comes in there and wins wins handily, in my opinion, against a ranked guy who they had high hopes for. And a couple more wins, he could be in title contention, and I wouldn't be that surprised if he could do it. I'm looking at the division, and I might not be Sean Denny probably knows better, and all that stuff, and whatever. But looking at Henry throughout the years, and seeing him develop, and seeing all the tools he has, and all that stuff, could he become a title contender? Could he become a title holder in KSW? I think he could.
Ooh, big call there, and time will tell. We'll see it, but great to see Henry there. Let's talk about the UFC. So, Graeme, last night, it was an absolute snooze fest of a prelim card. Just absolutely terrible. Main card was definitely a lot better. Unfortunately, it started with one of the worst injuries we've seen in the UFC in a long time. Thankfully, actually, the aftermath didn't seem too bad. So Estela Nunes was taken down by Victoria Dudikov, and as she did, she went to obviously post on an arm or whatever, and then her arm just snapped at the elbow, and could completely dislocate her elbow, went the opposite way. Dana White put up pictures on his Instagram of the elbow dislocated and then the elbow back in place. But look, she's probably tendons and all of that are probably torn to absolute shreds. Terrible injury, and hope she gets to come back stronger. But it looks like there's no break, or no major break anyway, so that's a good thing. Although tendons and all that can be just as bad sometimes. But yeah, it was a really, really nasty one, and hopefully one we don't see again for another one. Hopefully she can get back. But before that, not much I think stood out. Evan Elder wasn't bad. The Tyson Nam Maxim fight was pretty good. And Eileen Perez just destroyed Ashley Evans-Smith in that fight. One of the funniest moments in the history of the UFC happened in Norma Dumont versus Chelsea Chandler, where Chelsea Chandler got hit by a punch and literally turned around, tucked tail, and sprinted away. This was not an evasive, you're sprinting away from the pressure, you're trying to reset. She literally took a punch and ran away. It was one of the funniest things. I didn't even get mad at DC for giggling at this one. It was so funny. I can't get over how funny it was. It was absolutely hilarious. But Norma the Man like completely outclassed her, and won that fight. Before that, talking about being outclassed, Nazim Sadikov beat Terence McKinney. I thought this was an interesting fight because you look at the first round and Terence McKinney had the back of Sadikov for 4.5 minutes and did virtually nothing. And then Sadikov had the back of Terence McKinney in the second round for about 10 seconds and choked him to sleep. Right? I'm not choked him to sleep, choked him to until he called uncle or whatever you call it, right? And like this
into submission.
Into submission. This is the difference. And like, okay, one guy got submitted, but like this is the difference. When we talk about effective grappling, look at the effectiveness of Sadikov's grappling versus the effectiveness of McKinney's grappling. You know, and like why don't you score for 4 minutes of back control like that? Like why isn't that scoring loads? Well, it's not scoring loads because if it was as dominant as the position seems, then he would have gotten the result that Sadikov got. And now it's not always that
or
easy.
He would have gotten really close and it would have been, you know, really good defense or like, you know, last minute peeling the hand over the head or whatever. Like it would have been a big moment in the fight, obvious to everybody.
Indeed, forcing his opponent to defend, almost finishing him. Like, dominant positions are only dominant positions if you dominate in them. If you don't do anything in them, you're not dominating. They're not dominant positions, right? So anyway, that was just a bit of a judging rant there because we haven't too much to talk about with the judging there. But that was a very good win for Sadikov.
Couldn't help yourself.
Couldn't help myself. Terence McKinney, you know, Terence McKinney is such a good fighter in lots of different ways, but I don't know. He's just. It's going to take a lot. Myself and Harry actually have a very interesting podcast coming out in Speaker's Corner next week, I think, about fighters like McKinney who have like so much ability and there's always hope for someone like McKinney because he's so athletically good, but he'll have to use that well to actually get to the next level. He's not at this moment. But anyway, someone who is, someone actually probably beat the more athletic fighter was Jung Young Park. Jurayev, you know, coming in there doing his best, but Jung Young Park gets the rear naked choke as well. Took some absolute fucking bangers of blows in this fight, but came through it and ended up winning there. A good win for him in the middle.
Nearly won at the end of the first round as well with the choke. It looked deep and saved by the bell.
Indeed. I thought Francisco Prado looked very good. I did think this was an early stoppage, if I'm being honest. Not the worst early stoppage of all time or anything like that, but, you know, he hit him with a spinning elbow, but it was like a spinning, I don't know what, it wasn't the elbow, it was like your, tricep maybe? And he hit him with it and he hurt him with it, but it was more like, it wasn't a knockdown, I would say. I think I'd say kind of fell down as Prado's body weight came on top of him, but after getting hurt as well, like, and then Prado got in a good position, started landing ground and pound, as Aitzar tried to kind of peel away from him, and he was kind of kicking him as the fight was stopped. I was like, okay, there's no doubt about it, Prado had landed big ground and pound after a big shot, but like, this is one of those ones, I often talk about it, if it's a stoppage like this, you look at what came before and, you know, see if that had a massive effect on it. And I think it did, but I think wrongly so. I think it wasn't as big of a knockdown as it seemed, right? I think if he'd landed a massive elbow, clearly knocked him down, and what happened, I'd have no problem with the stoppage. But I just think he deserved a little bit extra. Now, I saw some people disagreeing. What did you think of this stoppage? I'm a bit meh now, to be honest.
I always kind of, even though obviously getting hit in the brain or whatever isn't good, I always like to give unless they've been completely dominated and it's like it's just a matter of time, you know, I always like to see them given that extra chance or that good chance to defend themselves and to fight back. So I'd agree it was a bit of an early stoppage. Like, I can see why you'd feel hard done by there. You know, reffing is a difficult job and you don't want guys to take extra punishment, but, you know, as you said, I think he was more stunned than finished. So I think we'll never know. Maybe a couple of ground and pound shots and it would have been it, but give him that chance in my opinion as well.
Yeah, 100%. And then we did the top two fights: Jack Della Maddalena versus Basil Hafez. First of all, in the co-main event, a very interesting fight. Hafez came prepared. He went in and he fucking took Jack Della Maddalena down immediately. I was just thinking of you in this fight, from the Franz Malamba point of view, where Jack Della kept going for the guillotine over and over and over. Now, a couple of times, he almost got it, and I think that first round was an interesting one because, and all of these rounds, to be honest, there wasn't much effective striking from Hafez, no effective grappling, and Jack Della almost had the guillotine a few times. So I'm like, well, I think
the angle was never quite right.
Yeah, I agree. But it wasn't far away. But yeah, Hafez fought so well on short notice. I heard him talking afterwards. Really, an awful weight cut, but look, I did think he did enough to win that first round. Even though he didn't land a whole lot, but he landed more in the first round, I think, than he did in the second and the third. Same thing in the second. Late in the second, there was Jack Della was winning on the feet before that and landing a good few strikes. Was ahead, and then Hafez had a couple of minutes on top, but literally did zero on top.
I think the weight cut, the short notice, and how tired he got definitely played into if he could have won that second round, he would have won the fight. And if he had a bit more gas, if he was in the tank, if he was a bit more ready for this opportunity, maybe it would have been a different result. So a good showing from him, a really good showing from him. And I'm definitely interested, looking at his record, you maybe think he might not be sticking around long, but on that performance, on short notice, that was surprising. And I think he took Jack Della Maddalena by surprise. And I think you could see he was nervous when that split decision was being read out, that Hafez was going to take the decision. So fair play to Hafez, and I'm interested to see if this is a case of Jack Della Maddalena not really taking him seriously enough, or the late style opponent change playing into it, or if Hafez is as good as he looked in that first round and the opening bits of the second round. Yeah, well, Jack Della was supposed to fight last week, and then he cut weight, again last night. I think it was tough for both of them. I think honestly it was one of those. So yeah, I think both will be better afterwards. But I agree with you. Hafez definitely deserves another shot. The third round, though, if people didn't see it, look, it was borderline 10-8 for. I was going to ask that. I saw some Jack people Della saying, "Oh, how is there no 10-8s there?" Why do you think it wasn't a 10-8, or would you have scored it a 10-8?
I think I would have. I did. I scored it a 10-8. I think it was, but it was a borderline one. I think. Hafez at the end of the last minute fought back a little bit, got on top for a second. It was actually hilarious. Did you see that? He was getting he nearly got finished 2 or 3 times, and then he got on top for literally 6 seconds, and Dominic Cruz oh, that could win him the fight. What are you talking about? He's nearly getting 10-8 here, and he gets on top for 6 seconds. Oh my god, it was one of the worst I've ever heard from Dominic Cruz.
If he had said, "Oh, maybe he saved the 10-8 or something," maybe, but
no.
Yeah, he's swinging it the whole way around from a 10-8 to a 10-9 the other way. It's a bit mental.
It was ridiculous. I think the reason the 10-8 wasn't given in that one was because sometimes you earn the 9, and I know the judges don't like saying that, but I think Hafez, the fact that he came through it, and it was I think it was more tiredness than hurt at times. And it was definitely hurt at times as well, but I think the fact that he kind of came back in the last minute and was still there and was still trying to fight back, I do think it was a 10-8. I do think it was a 10-8. I understand why they gave it 10-9. If you're looking, what's 10-8? Dominance, duration, and damage. Did he have the damage? We know they need a little bit more damage now. I think he did have the little bit more damage, to be honest, but again, they want a lot of damage. Although there was a lot of 10-8s in this, he had the dominance, and he had the duration, but he didn't have 5 minutes of duration. Let's put it that way. He had maybe 3.5 minutes of duration. So it's one of them where you consider it, and you don't 100% have to give it. But I do think it was a 10-8. But anyway, Jack Della won a split decision. It was all 10-9s in that round, but they were split on round 2, which I understand, to be honest. I did think Jack Della was ahead and deserved to win it. but it wasn't a blow away completely on the feet. And then we had the top control for 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it was, but he did nothing with it. I like the fact that Jack Della won that fight. I think that's how fights should be scored, and both guys will go forward from it. The main event then, Beuno Silva against Holly Holm. Beuno Silva fought a brave fucking fight here, a really brave fight, because Holly Holm, right, we all know what Holly Holm is, this fucking 19-time world boxing champion who will never get anyone to actually attack her because she wants to pick you off from the outside. And it's like we've never seen it in the UFC. It's like no one has ever walked forward against Holly Holm. Maybe there's someone now and that I'm missing. But like even Amanda Nunes like fought a more technical game against Holly Holm. But Beuno Silva was like, fuck that, I'm just walking forward. And in the first round, right, Holly Holm was picking her off. I actually scored it for Beuno Silva, and a lot of people disagree with me because Holly Holm probably like won that round in terms of strikes, I don't know, 20-5 or something like that. But I thought the strikes that Beuno Silva landed were way harder and affected her way more. And I think like that made it a bit of a borderline round, if I'm being honest, because there wasn't a big knockdown or a massive hurtful strike, but I do think her strikes landed more. But anyway, I was watching, it was like, this doesn't even matter, because if this fight keeps going this way, there's one person getting finished. I'm not sure who, but there's definitely someone getting finished, because you can't keep walking down Holly Holm like that, getting punched like she was, and do it for 5 rounds. And you also can't, if you're Holly Holm, take the shot she was taking from Beuno Silva and not put yourself in a little bit of danger. So it was going, it was either a rock or a hard place there at that stage, and it turned out to be the rock of Beuno Silva, who ended up getting the standing ninja choke. And I called this. I said it, like, she needed big moments. She needed to, not make Holly Holm panic, but put her in an uncomfortable situation and take advantage of that. Like, Beuno Silva is really good at that. If you were to describe her as a fighter, it's exactly that. Put people in uncomfortable situations and take advantage of it. And that's exactly what she did against Holly Holm. I thought it was a brilliant game plan and brilliantly executed from Beuno Silva. And when I say brilliant, I mean bravely brilliant. Like, it's not a game plan that's gonna work every time, but it's a game plan. Some people go out there with a game plan to, maybe win the fight, or like, some people know that there's a game plan to win a fight, but they're going to have to take a lot of shots or put themselves in danger to win it, and they do it anyway. I don't know if, Graeme, you listened to Dele Alli's interview with Gary Neville, and it was absolutely heart-wrenching and brilliant. But he was like, people that were saying that he was fearless, and he goes, I wasn't fearless, I had fear, but I still did it anyway. And I think that's
I was just brave.
Yeah, I was just brave. And I think that's exactly what Beuno Silva was. She knew she would get hit with shots, and she walked her fucking down anyway, and she won the fight because of it. By God, that was fucking brilliant. So impressed.
From Silva's point of view, it was brilliant. I agree with nearly all of what you said, but Holly Holm, just when she goes for takedowns, her body position, her head position, how upright she is, it's poor, really. Like, for somebody so experienced, been in MMA for so long, I don't know. She kind of put herself into that choke nearly, not on purpose or anything like that, just out of a bad mistake nearly, in my opinion. I think everything you said about Myra having Holly want to push her against the cage, she did everything right. She hit her with some big shots early. Nothing huge or anything, but enough for Holly to, try and grapple her against the fence or put her on the ground. But it's just not Holly's game, and she just doesn't seem to be able to develop that side of things. And every time she kind of goes for the kind of grappling positions and the takedowns, I always just, it always just looks so awkward, and so the positioning is wrong. And sooner or later she was going to get caught with something like this, and I think it was bad from Holly Holm in the end at the finishing sequence. Yeah,
it's interesting with Holly, because I was looking at her record during the week, and she's only been on 2 fight win streaks twice in her career, which is mad. Like, she started off her career 10-0, fair enough, but like, apart from that, she's only won back-to-back fights once. and like she'd won her last fight, and I'm thinking like, Jesus, that's not great for someone who's 40 years of age, whatever it is. I didn't think she looked like completely different or anything, but I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and I think Beuno Silva saw exactly what you said in terms of her body positioning in those positions, and she took advantage of it with the ninja, because other chokes or other submissions from that position are very hard. And also, I think a large part of this as well is Holly Holm is very hard to take down. And I said that in my preview as well. It's like she's going to have to find ways and moments of winning this fight. And it was a very unorthodox one that she did it with. Like, you know, I'm not saying that a ninja choke is unorthodox, but a standing ninja choke against Holly Holm in that sort of position isn't exactly, you know, I don't think anyone had that in their bingo card, let's put it that way, you know. But that's exactly what Beuno Silva is, and I think it was brilliant from her, well scouted and all. But for Holly Holm, yeah, it wasn't great. No, like, I don't think Holly, as I said, I don't think she necessarily looked terrible or anything. I'm not like calling for her retire. Did she look shot or anything? You know, if you're 41 years of age, you're not going to be as fast. You're not going to be as good as you are at 31 or 25 or whatever it might be. But yeah, I would agree with you, Graeme. Holly Holm was a bit naive, but I was so impressed with Beuno Silva, and have been for the last 4 or 5 fights, that I think she deserves the most of the praise for this. So fair play to her. Right, I think we leave it there. I think we've touched on everything for this week, Graeme. It was a busy week in MMA, and we have many more busy weeks to come as well. Congratulations to Dublin getting to the All-Ireland final, Graeme. I know you're absolutely delighted. Limerick will be there next week, so that should be fun. I don't know when the podcast is coming out next week. I'll either be hoarse or nervous, so we'll wait for that to enjoy it. But for this week, go over to our friends at Calera Lab. Use the promo code SevereMMA for 20% off. Go over to our friends over at Manscaped.com. Use the promo code SevereMMA for 20% off and free shipping. And if you haven't signed up to our Patreon yet, please do patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. And there's loads of stuff there all of the time. Follow me at Sean Sheehan BA on Twitter. Follow Graeme at SevereMMA. Follow at SevereMMA Pod, and all our good lads, Ian, Andy, Quilsha, Patrick, Sean Dinney, Theo, Sam Pertz, all the boys. Who am I leaving out? And Harry Powell, everyone. Follow them all over on Twitter as well. Graeme, see us out with a quote for the week.
He came dancing across the water with his galleons and guns, looking for the new world and the palace in the sun. On the shore. Shit. Sorry, just go back a little bit there.
No, keep going. No, keep doing it. You're not allowed.
On the shore lay Montezuma with his cocoa leaves and pearls. In his halls he often wandered with the secrets of the world.
We'll see you next week.
Only minorly butchered. /hugely butchered.
That'd be grand.